Have you ever wondered why things don't work out as quickly as you want? Even when you pray and have faith, you pour your heart out in prayer, hold on to hope, and expect to see results soon. But instead, nothing seems to change. It's like waiting for a package you've desperately wanted, checking the tracking every day, only to see that dreaded message, delayed. It's frustrating, right? I remember a time when I was waiting for a breakthrough, one that I had prayed for over and over. It was about landing my dream job. I had all the qualifications. I had worked so hard, and I believed God would open the door for me right away. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The silence was deafening, and I couldn't help but question if God had even heard me. Maybe you've experienced something similar, whether it's waiting for the right relationship, a health miracle, or a solution to a financial struggle. We've all felt the pain of waiting, but what if I told you there's a deeper reason behind these delays? What if the waiting isn't just a test of patience, but a part of a greater, extraordinary plan? There's something crucial about understanding God's timing, something that could change how you view every delay you face. By the end of this video, you'll discover why waiting on God is not a setback, but a setup for something extraordinary. You'll learn how every moment of waiting could be God crafting a masterpiece in your life. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear might just transform the way you see every unanswered prayer. God's concept of time is vastly different from ours. We live in a world of deadlines, schedules, and a constant desire for instant results. But in 2 Peter 3:8, we're reminded, with the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. It's a humbling thought. God, who created time, isn't constrained by it. Ecclesiastes 3:1 also tells us, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Every moment, every delay has a purpose within His divine plan. Imagine a giant, intricate tapestry. We, with our limited perspective, only see the tangled threads on the back, knots, messy lines, and no clear pattern. It's confusing and can feel chaotic. But God, the master weaver, sees the front side. He sees the stunning, beautiful image that each thread is contributing to. The very threads that make no sense to us are part of a breathtaking design from His viewpoint. Think about your life like that tapestry. What if the delay you're experiencing now, the unanswered prayers, the closed doors, are actually threads in a masterpiece you can't fully see yet? What if God is weaving something far more beautiful than you could ever imagine? So, take a moment to reflect. What might God be working on in the background of your life, even if it feels like nothing is happening? Could this waiting season be setting you up for something beyond your wildest dreams? Understanding His timing isn't easy, but trusting that He sees the whole picture can bring a sense of peace to the most difficult waits. Reason number 1, preparation. When we think about God's timing, it's crucial to understand that waiting periods aren't pointless delays. They are seasons of preparation. God often uses these times to shape us, mold us, and get us ready for the blessings He has in store. Sometimes we think we're ready for what we're praying for, but God knows we still need to develop certain qualities, learn essential lessons, or strengthen our faith. It's like planting a seed. There's an entire process that happens underground before we ever see a sprout break through the soil. In the same way, God is working on us beneath the surface, preparing us for something greater. Take the story of Joseph, for instance. He was a young man with big dreams that God Himself gave him. But before Joseph could fulfill those dreams, he faced unimaginable trials. His brothers sold him into slavery. He was falsely accused and thrown into prison, and he spent years waiting for a breakthrough. On the surface, it seemed like his life had gone horribly wrong, but in reality, God was preparing Joseph every step of the way. During those years of hardship, Joseph developed leadership skills, learned humility, and strengthened his faith. By the time he was elevated to the position of ruler over Egypt, he was fully prepared to handle the responsibility and fulfill God's purpose of saving many lives. Now think about your own life. What if the waiting you're experiencing is God's way of preparing you for a blessing or an opportunity that you're not ready for just yet? Maybe He's growing your patience, refining your character, or teaching you to trust Him more deeply. Perhaps you need to learn a specific skill or gain valuable experience that will make you successful when the time is right. Take a moment to reflect on your current situation. What qualities or skills could God be helping you develop right now? Where do you feel there's room for growth? I encourage you to write down these areas in your life. Maybe it's patience, resilience, faith, or learning to serve others. By identifying where you need to grow, you can start to see this waiting period not as wasted time, but as a vital season of preparation. When you embrace the idea that God is using this time to prepare you for something extraordinary, the waiting doesn't feel so heavy. Instead, it feels purposeful, knowing that you're being shaped into someone who can fully receive and steward the blessings that are coming your way. Reason number 2, protection. Another important reason God's plan often takes longer than we expect is for our protection. Sometimes God's delays aren't just about preparing us, but also about shielding us from things we don't even know are coming. He sees what we can't see, and in His love and wisdom, He holds us back from stepping into situations that could harm us or that we're not ready to handle. It's like a parent holding their child back from running into the street when they're too young to understand the danger. God's timing isn't meant to frustrate us. It's often His way of keeping us safe. Let me share a story that beautifully illustrates this. A friend of mine had been eagerly waiting to get a promotion at work. He worked tirelessly, poured his heart into his job, and felt like he was ready for the next step. But every time a promotion opportunity came up, he was passed over. He was deeply disappointed and couldn't understand why God wasn't opening this door for him. It felt unfair, and he questioned if God was even listening. Then, about a year later, the company he worked for went through a major restructuring. The division he had been so eager to move into was suddenly cut, and many people who had been promoted were laid off. Not only did he keep his job, but he also ended up moving into a new role that was a much better fit for him. It was only then that he realized God had protected him from a situation that would have turned his life upside down. What felt like a delay and disappointment was actually God's divine protection. Now, I want to engage you in a moment of reflection. Have you ever experienced a situation where a delay or a closed door left you feeling disappointed, only to realize later that it worked out for your good? Maybe a relationship ended, and at the time, you were heartbroken. But later you saw how that person wasn't right for you. Or perhaps you didn't get a job you desperately wanted, only to find a much better opportunity down the road. God's delays are not meant to harm us. They're often to protect us from dangers or pitfalls we can't yet see. Next time you face a disappointment, remember that God's no or not yet might be a loving act of protection. Trusting in His timing means believing He's watching over you and that He wants what's best for you, even if it means waiting a little longer. Reason number 3, purpose alignment. One of the most profound reasons God's plan can take longer than we expect is because He's aligning people, events, and circumstances to fulfill His greater purpose. God's vision for our lives is bigger than we can comprehend, and sometimes that requires divine orchestration that only He can master. We're not isolated. Our lives are interwoven with the lives of others. To fulfill His plan perfectly, God works behind the scenes, making sure everything falls into place at just the right time. The story of Esther is a powerful example of this divine alignment. Esther was a young Jewish woman who, by God's providence, became the queen of Persia. At first glance, it seemed like a random turn of events, but God had a purpose. When a decree was issued to annihilate the Jewish people, Esther was in the perfect position to intercede with the king and save her people. But think about how many things had to happen for this to be possible. Esther had to be chosen as queen. The timing of the threat had to coincide with her influence, and the hearts of the people around her had to be prepared. The entire story is filled with God working behind the scenes, weaving together a series of events to fulfill His greater purpose. Imagine God's plan as a grand symphony. Every person and situation is like an instrument in that orchestra. If any instrument plays out of sync or comes in too early or late, the beauty of the music is lost. But God is the ultimate conductor, ensuring that everything and everyone comes in at the perfect moment. The result is a harmonious masterpiece where everything works together for good. Now, I want you to reflect on your own life. What if the waiting season you're in right now is part of God's divine symphony? Maybe He's aligning people or circumstances that will open doors you never imagined. Perhaps He's working in someone else's heart, preparing them to meet you or collaborate with you in a way that will fulfill both of your purposes. Or maybe He's setting up a series of events that will ultimately lead you to a greater blessing. Consider how your life might be part of a bigger picture, one where your waiting is not in vain, but rather essential to God's perfect plan. Trusting in His purpose means believing that He is aligning everything, even the things you can't see, to work together for His glory and your good. Then how can we wait faithfully? Waiting can be incredibly difficult, especially when we feel like we're doing everything right, but still don't see the results we're hoping for. One way to transform this experience is to shift your perspective from impatience to anticipation. Instead of viewing waiting as passive suffering, think of it as an active time of preparation and growth. Waiting faithfully doesn't mean sitting around and doing nothing. It's about actively engaging in what God has for you right now, while trusting that His timing is perfect. First, deepen your relationship with God. One of the most powerful ways to wait faithfully is to connect more closely with Him. Spend time in prayer, not just asking for what you want, but also listening for God's guidance and peace. Reading the Bible can bring incredible comfort and clarity, revealing God's promises and reminding you of His faithfulness. Worship is another tool that can shift your heart from worry to trust. When you worship, you acknowledge that God is greater than your circumstances, and this act of surrender can bring immense peace. Use this waiting time to strengthen your spiritual foundation, making you more resilient for whatever lies ahead. Next, stay busy and serve others. Waiting doesn't mean you have to put your life on hold. In fact, using your gifts to serve others can be incredibly fulfilling and meaningful. Volunteer, help a friend in need, or take on a project that brings you joy. Staying active not only makes the waiting period feel more purposeful, but also aligns you with God's heart for service. Sometimes God uses these opportunities to open unexpected doors or bring clarity to your own path. Finally, focus on self-improvement. Think of this time as an opportunity to grow in areas that could be crucial for the blessings or responsibilities God has in store for you. Maybe there are skills you need to develop, whether it's learning more about your profession, honing a hobby, or building better habits. Perhaps there's emotional or spiritual growth that needs to happen, like working on patience, resilience, or learning to trust God more deeply. Ask yourself, how can I become the person who is ready to receive God's promises? Waiting faithfully is about being proactive, using the time to grow rather than letting frustration consume you. When you view waiting through this lens, it becomes an active, meaningful season where you prepare your heart, serve others, and grow into the person God created you to be. Trust that God is at work, both in you and around you, setting the stage for His perfect plan to unfold. Waiting can be difficult, but remember, God's timing is perfect. His plans for your life are far greater than anything you could ever imagine. Even when it seems like nothing is happening, God is working behind the scenes for your good. Trust that His delays are not denials, and that He's preparing something beautiful for you. As Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And God's promise is to bless you beyond what you can envision, and He will bring you to the right place at the right time. If you're struggling in a waiting season, I invite you to share your story in the comments. Let's build a supportive community where we uplift and pray for one another. Your journey could inspire someone who feels alone. If this video gave you hope, please like, comment, and subscribe for more faith-based encouragement. And stay tuned. Our next video dives deeper into God's promises and how to find joy even in difficult times. You won't want to miss it.